Okay.
All right, and go.
Hi, good afternoon. Is it okay if I call you Fid?
If you don't mind calling me by my full name, it's Firdous.
Firdous. Amazing. Yeah. Thank you. I wasn't sure how to pronounce it properly, so that helped.
And you're Tibby.
Yes, I'm Tibby. Tibby's perfect. It's actually Tabitha, but no one calls me that unless I'm in trouble. So.
Okay, I won't call you that then.
Yeah, we'll go with Tibby today. That sounds great. Firstly, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. It's a really great opportunity for us to get to know a little bit more about how the last year's been for you, because certainly it's been challenging for everyone, but particularly for the girls that make up your community and your organisation, just to allow our audience to gain a better perspective of how things have changed for them, but also how you've adapted and how things have stayed similar. So if it's okay with you, we can just touch over the questions and I'll make them more personal to you and Lalela. So if you could just start off by explaining a little bit to me about the work that Lalela does and your role in particular, please, Firdous.
Okay, so Lalela provides educational art for at-risk youth in different communities across Africa. We run our workshops to spark creative thinking and to develop an entrepreneurial spirit. Our vehicle is art, so we always say, our outcome is not to produce lots and lots of artists. Art is our tool that we use in order to spark social change. So what we do is through creative mediums, and we work in all different mediums, painting, drawing, photography, film, performance, poetry, whatever. We look at developing different parts of our learner selves, develop critical thinking, grit, perseverance, confidence, collaboration skills, all of those things that they need to get ahead. In the communities we work, our learners don't necessarily have access to the same opportunities as everybody else. And so it is going to be up to them to create that for themselves. So what we do is we try and provide support and skills to make that journey easier for them or possible for them. Within our art programming, we have lots of different sub-programs. So we work from grades 1 right up until grade 12, which is the last year of our high school. And like I say our kids are exposed to all forms of art. But then within that, we also work with a group of grade 8 girls in all of our high schools. And the reason why we decided to start a group for just the girls is because we noticed that we would have quite a large amount of girls in primary school, and then in high school they would slowly start to drop off, so that by the time we get to the final year of school, we have a predominantly male class. And when we did a survey around it, we did some digging around why is it that the girls were dropping off. And a lot of the reason was because girls just have different responsibilities to boys. So a lot of them were actually taking care of siblings, and not that the boys in our program don't do that either, but I think it's a bigger responsibility for the girls. They have to cook and clean and fulfill those duties. But there was also not an expectation for them to become anything else besides, stay-at-home mom or to work a menial job. There wasn't a kind of drive or expectation for them to be anything more. So for a lot of the girls, it just, there wasn't that focus on how do I develop myself and my skills? How do I dare to dream? How do I actually believe in myself and believe that as a woman from my community, I can actually do whatever I like. I can, the sky's the limit. So we decided to focus particularly on grade 8 girls because that's when they were most vulnerable. Obviously, there's also the fact that a lot of the girls were pregnant during high school, and that causes them to drop out eventually. So how do we reach the girls when they are most vulnerable? And so that they start their high school career off in a strong, supportive, feminine community that can help them throughout their years of high school, so that it's not a case of, girls bringing down girls, getting at each other, but rather, even though we don't know each other, we might not be friends, but in this setting, in school, we've got each other and we are a community of support. Um, so we started our female empowerment program around 6 years ago, and it's been extremely successful. Our last group of final year matriculants were predominantly female, which was very funny and they were all from our female empowerment program from when they were in grade 8. And we're now starting a boys program, because I think the need at the time for us was to really focus on our goals, so that we have goals carrying through the program. But now, in the greater context of the world, we feel like it's time to also focus on the boys as well.
Oh, that's an amazing response. It is interesting the way that this gender ideology around like domestic responsibility just sort of shadows girls all through their lives, and can be very difficult for them to find the support to break away from that. And I think for Jordan and I, we both think art as a movement of, like self-expression, self-exploration is so important. So like thinking a bit about yoga. So I'm not sure how exposed the girls have been to yoga or anything like that, but how do you think that they would respond to types of movement and sort of being given the skills of yoga to just sort of run with themselves?
I mean, at the girls, they a lot of them have done yoga or they've heard of it. They really love it. Jordan actually came over to South Africa during one of the retreats, and did some yoga and art with the girls, which is an amazing experience, and they were so excited about it. And I think for us, the girls program, obviously because we are Lalela, it's very much based around creative practices. But we also do meditation at the start of all of our classes. And that starting off in breath and mindfulness is a really important part of developing trust and safety and comfort within the space. So I think, yeah, I mean, yoga supports actually so much of what we do as well, and what we're trying to develop in the goals.
Yeah, completely. Because I suppose it's a personal experience, but it's also can be very collective, very communal. I always think of meditation and yoga as something that's very much about us, and I think we do see that in the West. And I think a lot of the time that's the problem with yoga now, is that it's not about this intrinsic feeling, it's more about a performance. And I think the way that it inspires us is to see how other communities would adopt it and teach us about the ways that it can work, and about finding tranquility, and but also just having fun and working together in that sense, and how it can be like a group binding or team building exercise as well as something that's for yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
When I always say, when we start introducing meditation into a new class, it's actually quite a big lesson in vulnerability and trust, because for teenagers to close their eyes in front of each other alone requires quite a lot of trust. And in the beginning, there's sometimes laughing and joking, and but you see the difference a few weeks in, how much they all really appreciate it and almost wait for it. It's such a powerful tool. I remember there was one day I had so much to get through for that day, and I tried to skip it, and then they said, "Excuse me, we forgot to meditate." And I was like, "I'm sorry, I'll never do it again. I just really wanted you to finish your project today."
That's amazing. That's incredible. Like those kinds of stories are just the best, because it just shows what vehicles they're just turned into for everyone in their individual ways.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So you've sort of touched on what I was thinking in terms of emotional ability. So one thing that we're obviously thinking about in terms of the future is how we can make more tangible connections with our project and organization partnerships that we've got with you, obviously, in Lalela, and just thinking about ways that how we can make our relationship with you deeper using meditation, using self-expression, using yoga, and your opinion on how that can be sewn into your project, and how what we can do to make that, to facilitate that for your students.
Mm. So I think for us, obviously we have a set program that the girls work through. But like I said, at the start of every day, we always start with mindfulness and meditation. Um, Unfortunately, because of the communities we work in, we don't work in locations where there is internet. And even if we do stream via our mobile phones, and we've tried that before, often it's in areas that don't have very good signal, so the connection's quite bad. But what we can definitely do is do activities that is video based, for example, so shorter activities that we can start the session off with. It could be a video, it could be just instructions that get sent to us. But I think yeah, I mean, there's so many things, it could be that the movement or the meditation that is sent could be around the themes that we're doing, for example. So, we spend a lot of time um, around understanding our bodies, understanding the woman's body and our anatomy and how they work, how it works, how to respect our body, how to nurture our body, how to take care of our reproductive health. We spend a lot of time on accessing the power of our own voices, how to break our silences, how to use our voices. We spend time looking at women's rights, and spend time on looking at how they can change their own narrative as young women. So there's a lot of themes that we work within that meditation and movement can very nicely fit into. So I think there's a lot of potential for working together there. And we also have a really great kind of mentorship project. I'm not sure how easy it would be if the person that is working with the girls is not in the same city. That has been a challenge before. Yeah, but I think that, there's so much potential.
Absolutely. And things that we can implement in our own set of like skill sharing is this idea of like health equity, and what you said about reproductive rights, like that's so interesting because it does help us to connect to our bodies as women, and we've all got so much to learn regarding that. So like that's a really positive sort of path to take our teaching down as well. I think
Yeah.
that's really quite inspiring for us.
Mm.
And yes, so the last sort of topic I thought we could touch on, because it's something that Jordan and I are working on at the moment, which is our teacher training initiative. So it's our dream to see projects of, and for young women and girls to be given the skill set of yoga in which to completely adopt and internalize personally, to make it their own practice, their own experience in which that they can then share. And you were talking about like entrepreneurial skills. I really like this idea of yoga being something that can be entrepreneurial for non-white thin women in the West, and this idea of this idea of decolonizing the problem with wellness is how Jordan and I met, and what really like fused our sort of our projects together and our working partnerships. So just wondering what your thoughts are on that as a possible pathway for some of the students or young women that that becoming yoga teachers, whether it's a side project, whether it's something that's involved in a tourism element, just what you can sort of see on the horizons of that being a possibility.
I mean, I think it's definitely something that will really benefit our girls and even our boys, they're mostly boys who might want to be yoga teachers. I think like our whole ethos is around how do you create opportunity for yourself. And actually a skill like teaching yoga is absolutely aware. And like you say, it is really important that the industry of yoga teaching is more representative, doesn't exclude, because teaching yoga, a yoga teacher training in South Africa is really expensive. To actually do yoga in South Africa is really expensive. And so to make that accessible and to teach that to young people from our project who might be interested and can, generate an income or bring that into their community, run classes, even become somebody like personal yoga instructors, or, it can actually be like a really amazing business opportunity or work opportunity for a lot of, and we're always looking for skills development opportunities, especially for our alumni. So, if that is something, I mean, I don't know how you guys would also do it being in London, and I don't know, I'm certainly no yoga teacher, but I can't imagine learning that online.
It's definitely a post-COVID dream.
Yes, but I think, I mean, it's a wonderful vision. I think it's definitely a big need, because if it was that you were to give that skill to people in the communities that don't have access to something like yoga, which is such a wonderful tool for healing, for but just for so many health benefits as well. That is actually something that you could do on your own in your own space. And once you teach that skill to people in the community, they can spread that on. They can, it can be a practice within the community that's brought in. If I look at something like boxing, for example, in one of our communities, boxing is huge. But there are people in the community who are boxers, they live there, they give their time, and those kids in that boxing class are great at it. They've gone on to competitions and it teaches them discipline and all of those things. But it does tend to be also the very like male dominated sport that have these kinds of hubs, boxing, soccer. It's there aren't many physical activities aside from dance or sport that focuses or opens up for girls. There's obviously girls soccer clubs and all that kind of stuff, but generally, they do attract mostly the boys. But like I say, I mean, it's not that it has to be gendered. Boys can also become yoga instructors. We know that there is a bigger appeal for the girls, but not to say that the boys wouldn't be interested or that girls are not interested in soccer. I'm not trying to stereotype it, but from observing, who accesses those programs, the distinction is clear.
No, completely. And I suppose what's wonderful is having conversations about breaking those boundaries or barriers between feminine and masculine sort of experiences and activities. And I think one of the things that we see, because we've had the same we've had the initial pilot project take place in Rwanda, and what we've seen there is the leadership skills that the women have gained from this. And like you said, like the practice of yoga then just spreads amongst the community, and it's wonderful to see people take pride in something that they've learned and turn it into their own, because their own form, their own way of doing something and sharing that. And it's this idea of how things just, because it's not for personal gain or it doesn't always have to be for personal gain. It can lead down many different sort of avenues for people.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about the amount of people who work maybe in ECDs or in community care or schools as assistant teachers or as teachers, once they have those skills, where they decide to utilize it can be limitless. It can be big and in an old age home that they work at. It can be in an ECD creche that they assist in. They can bring those skills into so many different settings.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that just thought of it as just being this borderless experience for people, because I think we've seen so many walls within the yoga industry and within wellness that they can seem really impenetrable to break, and I just think that's a reality that we don't want it to be real, or we don't want to contribute to that reality. So having these conversations is just incredible, because it allows us to see that without the work that yourself and your organization does, we wouldn't necessarily have a way in to make those differences. So it's the collaboration that makes this possible, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, collaboration is key, and it's one of our core values. It's something that we try and teach our learners as much as possible, because so we've created this space for it, but to have people bring in different skills that can benefit our learners and take them further, especially when we stop. So once school's finished, our learners now need to thrive on their own, and we provide support in terms of guidance and all that kind of stuff, but really in terms of them honing in on their skill or developing something, they need to think for themselves, and they need to do that for themselves, and to create and open up new avenues of opportunity is exciting. It's
Yeah, completely. And I suppose, well, one of the things that yoga's helped me with personally is building sort of self-resilience, and that kind of internal relationship with yourself, where it's self-belief, I suppose. It's not letting past things limit what you think you can do or what you can do. Fusing the two together is a really exciting
but it's also just like that, allowing yourself to be present in your body and be aware of your body. The communities we work in, our learners are faced with so much trauma, experience so much trauma, and they have inherited trauma, and they carry so much, and there's so many responsibilities that they carry. And so to have that space to move your body and be aware of your body, and it's a gift to yourself. It's a time to really focus on you and to gain that confidence to love your body, so yeah.
No, but really it reminds me of an author who writes about, particularly with people who've experienced trauma, is this idea of reclaiming the body. And yoga creates that space in which it's a somatic experience to sort of be in control of something that you can quite often not feel in control of, and the thought of being able to provide that to people on entirely their own cultural terms and in line with their own custom or indigenous tradition, like that's so important to us. I'm aware I've taken half an hour of your probably really busy day. Thank you so much. I'm really blown away. I actually feel quite emotional. This happened earlier as well. But thank you so much, Firdous. It was incredible to speak with you.
Thank you, and thank you guys for the work you're doing. I know you guys also had a really tough COVID year, but I think I can, speaking to Jordan, you guys are continually kind of thinking about the next steps or looking at ways to really develop this project as something more and more meaningful. So thank you guys as well.